Wild swings in the chances of a recession. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainsley Insights, brought to you by Ainsley Bullion, Ainsley Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Today, welcome back, Alex, after what was a very interesting night. We had really probabilities. If we're talking about probabilities today, we had probabilities shift from 100% to 0% to 100% to 0%. Like, it was all over the place, like nothing I've ever seen before. Quite an amazing time to be alive. How are you going today, Alex?
I'm going well. How are you going? I don't know that I'm going well. The markets are crazy. But anyway, what can you do?
Well, uh, some certainty, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how to interpret this because certainly yesterday, I know I was talking to a lot of people going, look, we seem to be on the edge here of some really bad stuff happening in the markets. The bond market, I know you were talking to me about that just before. The bond market was looking like it was pricing in some real problems. But then all of that sort of disappeared, but we still have this dramatic escalation in the US China aspect, which is a bit I really want to dig into. There's so much happening at the moment. It's hard to sort of narrow it down. But let's start off with the US and China trade tariff situation because it's hit the Aussie dollar. That's probably the one that's hitting us the most. So let's start there. What do you think is going on there? Are we at risk of recession because of what's going on related to China?
Well, I mean, let's start with what everyone's saying about a world recession. Probably Goldman Sachs was a good one, which over the week when Trump was announcing tariffs went from 40% this year to 60% this year to 0% last night. So, in the space of a week, the odds of a recession have swung so wildly. Like those numbers is you can't even bet on a horse when the odds are moving like that. And this is recession, and this is talking about the world. So, what is going on in that regard is pretty insane. Um, and then how that impacts the Aussie dollar is we're getting a double whack because of what's going on with China. So I think it was Friday, the Aussie dollar was sitting at about 63.8 and it sank all the way down to, I think, below 60 last Friday. Like just that's nearly a 4-cent swing in a night. So we've never seen stuff like this. And the Aussie dollar is getting hit on a couple of fronts. So obviously we're a risk currency. So if there's a recession, we get hit. So we got hit for that. Then we got hit for China being our closest trading partner. If they fall over because they're being punished by the US with tariffs, then we get hit. If you looked at the US dollar was actually sinking against everything except for the Aussie dollar and the New Zealand dollar. And what's even more interesting, I read a great article the other day about how, because we've got so much savings in super, and our super funds are now investing so much more overseas, I think it used to be 30% and now it's 50%, so it's been growing. They're buying dollars overseas and selling Aussie dollars, and that's suppressing it too. So we've got three things hitting the Aussie dollar all at the same time, and these swings are wild. So if you looked at the Swiss franc, we dropped like 12% against that in a couple of days, whereas the US dollar was more like 8%, 6%. Yeah.
Some of the stuff I've been looking at is highlighting that what matters probably more than the even magnitude, and as you said, the absolutely ridiculous magnitude, like the size of these swings, is the speed of the swings. So the stuff I was looking at was saying that's really part of the concern here because it introduces a whole new level of uncertainty where you've got volatility just at such high levels that people become almost frozen in their capacity to make any decision because they go, well, yeah, it's good today, but yesterday we thought we were falling off the edge of the cliff into the abyss. So it's so wild that
Yeah.
that could be a big problem. And you
Yeah,
mentioned,
we're literally getting 2 cent swings daily.
yeah,
And that's just 2 cent swing was so big before that you get it maybe once a year, and we're getting it daily. Like it's crazy.
well, and you think about it from the perspective of a business owner or a large enterprise in Australia, when you've got that sort of movement happening, it makes it very difficult to make any long-term decision, certainly. So you're probably just in a defensive mode, even with the good news when we get a spike out of that that's happening today.
I mean, is it good news? Because it's down 4 cents. So if you left
Well,
it
true.
open on Friday, like you're still down 2 cents. So, you know, some people's good news is other people's bad news. It's a really difficult thing to manage.
So you mentioned sort of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. You've got Warren Buffett with record cash pile. He was obviously ahead of this. He was building the cash position into this, absolutely. How do you think about that? Do you think that they go and deploy here, that they go, oh, well, we've got 90-day certainty potentially over not as much volatility we deploy, or they wait? Like they are surely facing the same uncertainty that we're facing.
I think unlike Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, who would probably deploy more often with this sort of stuff, I think Warren Buffett's waiting for the finale. So, you know, he started building this beginning of last year. It was a record cash hoard by the end of last year. Um, I don't think anyone thinks this is the finale yet. So, you know, no one thinks it's a finale. Maybe you've got other investment banks that will swing between. Warren Buffett is always a long-term investor. He would be sitting back and just going, I'm cool to wait, I think. So, yeah, different perceptions on what's going on. The US economy has certainly slowed. The Atlanta Fed was saying, I think it was 2% down or something on GDP. It was quite a bit down on their estimates. So it's definitely slowed. But that also may be because people have been mass importing stuff in fear of the tariffs. So they've been
That front
producing
running.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might just be a 1 quarter thing going on. And really, until more data comes in, you wouldn't be calling recession. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why it's gone from 40 to 60 to 0 overnight. Like, you know, there's just not enough data right now and not enough certainty to know what's going on.
Everyone will obviously be looking at the US. I know I'm spending a lot of time looking at the US, but we do need to focus on Australia, and people want to know what's going on here. You highlight very regularly how vulnerable we are because you mentioned before we've got the sinking dollar, we have that commodity export reliance. Do we have any levers? How do we approach this? Do you think that the government can really respond if this doesn't resolve overnight? It takes longer. Certainly, we saw the Trump administration increase tariffs further on China last night, so that even though they were reducing on anyone else, we've got very, very high, arguably unsustainable tariffs that are going on there.
You'd argue why the 4 cent drop we got, if 2 cents was because of China and 2 cents was because of recession. We've pulled back the 2 cents and the 2 cents is still sitting there for China.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. But do we have the levers? Can the Reserve Bank do anything here?
I mean, sure, the Reserve Bank can lower our rates. We're well behind the 8 ball. You look at New Zealand, they dropped again yesterday or the day before. So they're at 3.5%. We've dropped once. They're down, I think, 1.5 to 2%. They're down a huge amount. Canada's down a huge amount. And Australia's holding up. Our inflation's been high, courtesy of our government spending, which is still completely out of control. Does the RBA have a lever? Always, if the government cooperates, they're not. They will have the lever that they drop our rates. It does mean the Australian dollar drops and it just holds our inflation high. It means no more holidays in Europe or America for the moment.
That'll be a problem. How does it play out? If I just want dig a little bit deeper into the mechanics of that. So if we end up with cheaper mortgages, is that obviously that's a positive for households, but are you effectively saying there that might not be net positive enough to offset these other pressures?
Pretty big pressures, like the inflation that's going to come in just from a 4 cent, that's, I mean, we don't make much here anymore. So we'll have an 8% increase on goods just on coming in based on what happened over the weekend. So, if you had it, mortgage rates would have to drop quite a bit to offset what potential inflation could come through. But then you've got oil prices dropping. You've got you've got oil prices in the rest of the world dropping, gas prices in the rest of the world dropping, just not in Australia. So we're not seeing the energy benefit that the rest of the world's seeing right now.
I won't get you started on gas because we'll be going for another half hour.
Yeah.
But the last question I do need to ask you though is about gold as a hedge in this situation, because in Aussie dollar terms, we obviously see an impact there when you talk about those big falls in the Aussie dollar, where gold holds up, even if it is starting to stabilize or even slightly retrace some of that move in US dollars. How do you think about gold in this environment? Is it something that Australians can think of as an inflation hedge against the weakening Aussie dollar?
100%. So what's been interesting is gold used to go down against the US dollar probably up until the middle of last year. Now gold has been going up with the US dollar. So Aussie up, gold up is what used to happen. At the moment, it's Aussie down, gold down. So it becomes like a really good hedge with all the uncertainty in the world at the moment.
Good upbeat bit to end on. Thank you so much for digging into that, Alex. I know there's so much happening, so we really do appreciate you coming on and sort of giving us your perspective on how it's all unfolding. It's a bit of hard work, I know, but we do appreciate it. So thank you so much.
No problem. Just need a holiday now.
Well, you can take one for a little bit. I'll let you off. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.